I gasped out loud multiple times.
See, she's not like Aimee Gibb. She's like Aimee Wood.
I was just as shocked at the end as everybody else will be shocked watching it.
I mean, it's anyone's game of, who's gonna survive season 3.
At the end of the week, you will be an entirely different person.
What happens in Thailand stays in Thailand.
Amen.
Amen. I think the cosmos brought us together. I'm gonna help you bring your joy back.
Whoa, hey, slow down, dick.
Why are rich men always so angry?
Your character, Jacqueline, is also revealed to be, a famous either actor or television star in some way. So when you're playing someone who's in a similar line of work to your own, is that kind of an instant access point to understanding them, or do you try to kind of section off, your own experiences?
It's a great question. And initially it was very kind of confronting because it's very kind of meta. I'm like, ooh, this hits a little close to home. And so obviously kind of familiar with certain aspects of the character and sort of some of the things that she experiences. But I think what was really fun was to be able to dig in and section off, as you say, with Mike and say, like, where are the little moments that we really want to, like, push the boundaries and really kind of lean into the personality traits that feel very White Lotus, that we know that audiences are going to love, that feel like juicy and gossipy. And so that was the really fun process, working with him to do that.
And of course, as is tradition for the White Lotus, the series picks up with a dead body being discovered in a flash forward.
Yes.
Obviously, that's all completely top secret, but I wondered, at what point did you find out the identity of that person and what was your reaction?
So I found out when all 8 scripts were delivered into my inbox. And I was on a plane, and I was on a 15-hour flight, and I read all of them, just such page turners, of course, just like the show. And I was just as shocked at the end as everybody else will be shocked watching it. It's you have no idea. It's the brilliance of Mike White. You have no idea what's coming. It's crazy.
I can't answer that specifically, but what I will say, having read all the episodes, I gasped out loud multiple times. So there's no heavy concentration in one incident. There's so many moments this season that are going to delight and surprise audiences. And I think that, it's anyone's game of, who's going to survive season 3. And I think it's really cool how Mike weaves a story that really, as someone who was reading the scripts, it wasn't until I knew that I knew, and I think that's just great writing.
So while I was reading the scripts, I had 100 different guesses, and I would get to episode 4 and I would be like, I know who it is. And then I would be wrong. And when I got to the end, I was like, oh, I was really wrong. It was someone that, I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, I guessed about so many different times and I still got it wrong. So that's why Mike's so clever.
Yeah.
He keeps everyone on their toes, big time.
Chelsea and Rick really don't appear to have very much in common based on the first episode. So I'm wondering, besides the money that he apparently has, what do you think brought them together and what is keeping them together?
Well, Chelsea's opinion is that it's the cosmos bringing them together and that it's fate. So I kind of just had to buy into that as the actor, and go with that school of thought. But I think that there are so many couples in the world that it's like, what is drawing these two people together? No one can see on paper what that is. But I think that as the show goes on, it becomes maybe more clear. But I think Chelsea is she just truly believes it's fate. And so she's just sticking with it, even though the evidence is pointing in the other direction.
Well, that is the thing. There are a lot of red flags. I've only seen the first episode.
Okay.
But even in the first episode, there are a lot of red flags. It feels like Chelsea is kind of drifting into proximity with quite dangerous people. I wonder, do you think, is she aware of it on any level that she might be in danger, or does it just go over her head? Because it seems like she's very unconcerned by everything that's going on around her.
That is so intuitive because one of the words that I got given as like to help me with my audition before I did my self-tape, they were like, a few things about Chelsea, unbothered was one of them.
Right.
And so, like, as in kind of oblivious about, all she's bothered about is Rick. And like, she's just got her like tunnel vision on. So I think she is kind of, I don't think she's scared. And I just had to play, like, as the actor, it was so fun playing that of like, this, I would kind of be suspicious or whatever, but Chelsea's just going with the flow because she thinks kind of a more fatty, whatever happens, happens. She's very like that.
Obviously, the White Lotus fans know Belinda from season 1. But I wondered in season 3, can we expect to see any new sides of her that might surprise us that we haven't seen before?
Yeah, I think so much of her season 1 was this sort of internal sort of struggle. And I think we get to see her struggles and her thoughts and feelings externalized a lot this season. And we see her not only in relationship to her job in hospitality by visiting Thailand to learn from the spa there, we see her as a guest and we see her as a mother. And so I think audiences will be excited to get to know her more in that way.
And of course, your character is always going to be linked with Tanya McQuad.
Always.
And of course, like, fans were sad to see Tanya go in season 2 because she was a fun character, but of course, she wasn't a particularly nice character, particularly to Belinda. And so I wonder, you know, by revisiting her essential betrayal of Belinda in this season, do you think it will maybe recontextualize or reframe how we think about that season 2 ending?
Well, I think that audiences will see someone on the other side of betrayal. And I think that it takes a lot to come back from that. And I think that in order for Belinda to reach out to her season 1, it required a lot of vulnerability. And that's sort of the fucking shitty part about vulnerability is that you risk getting hurt. And I think that, you know, in the time between, you know, season 1 and season 3, I think she was trying to heal from that hurt. And so we'll see her on the other side of it and her sort of, you know, fledgling attempt to sort of step out from that and, you know, invest in herself and take more risks by even being on this trip. But selfishly, you know, I love Jennifer Coolidge so much and loved acting with her. And so I was shocked along with the world when she didn't survive season 2. I texted her. I was like, oh my God, what? She's like, I know. So yeah, I think it's cool to see that story continue and sort of see what the actual emotional toll of that on people. And I think Belinda gives a voice to the voiceless, and you know that she's in a servile role and she's someone who's often ignored, you know, in her job and is in service of other people, and we get to see her take up space, and so that's cool.
So from the very beginning, Jacqueline's kind of girls' trip seems to be quite fraught, let's say.
Yes.
There seems to be tension. Jacqueline and Kate are kind of thick as thieves, but Laurie is very much kind of left out, it seems, comparatively a bit distant. So without spoiling anything that's coming up, I wondered if you could talk a bit about like how that dynamic has occurred so early into their holiday.
Yes, so they're childhood best friends who have maintained a relationship over the years, but have had difficulty kind of actually organizing a girls' trip. Jacqueline finally, like, you know, they figure it all out. Jacqueline treats them to, you know, this fabulous trip. And it's at that point where they're just, you know, trying to present their best selves. I think their most perfect lives. And I think then ultimately the thing that kind of tends to happen and can happen quite often is, you know, that those comparisons of oneself to others, the judgment starts kind of coming in a little bit, you know, after all of these years having, you know, gone different directions in their lives and sharing personal details and surprises and private things, you start to see that kind of, that dynamic play out. And as the season progresses, you see that dynamic shift between the characters, you know, you see then the other two kind of pair off and so forth and so forth. And so until it all just kind of upends itself.
Well, so because I've only been given the first episode, so I'm very much in the dark about a lot of what happens. But in the season 3 trailer, we do get a little bit of a hint as to where the story is going.
Yes.
There's a moment in the trailer where Laurie says that Jacqueline, and I'm quoting here, lives off male attention. So I wondered what you make of that accusation towards your character. Do you get defensive over Jacqueline, or do you think it's a fair comment by Laurie?
Well, that goes into a lot of the backstory that these young women share. And the, how shall I say, the various truths, how we all remember certain situations, I think, is when people recall certain experiences, everybody kind of has their own individual truth. And so we tap into that specific idea with the women.
I'm a huge fan of the show, and I recently watched seasons 1 and 2 kind of back to back.
Smart man. I like your style.
It struck me though, upon revisiting them simultaneously like that, they're actually very different. You know, like the kind of execution and the style is actually, it differs quite a lot. And I wondered with season 3, how do you think it differentiates itself from the 2 that came before?
It's a great question, and they are very, very different. I think the one thing that ties them is Mike's tone, right? He's a master of tone in his writing and his and the way that he explores social commentary politically as well. That you kind of get all the way through, which is something that you can know and depend on. And I think what's special about 3 is that you have kind of the Western culture meets the Eastern culture. You kind of take what's shiny and shallow about the Western culture, and you kind of, it's the intersection of the spirituality and the philosophy and the beautiful, the Buddhist religion and Thailand, and these guests being confronted with that. And I think also what makes this show a departure from seasons 1 and 2 is that we see the guests at the hotel go out into Thailand and explore and sightsee more. So we actually get to, as an audience, see more of Thailand. We get to culturally understand a lot more than in previous seasons. And I think as a result, the show actually feels bigger in scope.
I think with 3, there is a real different energy to it from the beginning. I think that just like even the opening and our eyes in, and who is chosen to be the eyes in to the story, it just adds a different vibe. But I would say that it felt more to me like season 1, but has the kind of the bigness of season 2, like the kind of so much goes on. So it's kind of I would say it's a perfect hybrid of the 2 that's come before it, but with this added kind of, I feel like it's straight from the off, it's like more foreboding, and it's a bit more kind of, I don't know, there's kind of a melancholy to it. It's still got that sharpness and like wit, but I do think there's this quite melancholic, very human thing going on. Yeah.
And all 3 seasons of The White Lotus have, of course, had this incredible backdrop to enjoy. I wondered, because in season 2 we kind of got out of the hotel a bit more than in season 1. In season 3 I've heard that continues. Did you get to shoot in many places, and what were kind of your favourite locations to shoot in?
We got to shoot in some of the most incredible, like I couldn't actually take in some of my surroundings at points because it was so overwhelmingly beautiful. Like certain beaches that we went to, and like that we got to see some of the islands. Like it honestly was like the most picturesque. But I also loved then going to Bangkok as well, like because some of it we filmed in a studio in Bangkok, and like then experiencing the city after all of that time being in this like epic nature that was so overwhelmingly gorgeous. But then the city was it was great to be back in a city as well. But I loved it all. I loved every place really. But Koh Samui was that was home. Koh Samui was home. Yeah.
Obviously, you became known to lots of people around the world for your role in Sex Education. And watching The White Lotus, there are definitely similarities to be drawn between Chelsea and Aimee. Did you see those similarities? And yeah, what do you feel about, I guess, kind of that character sort of, I guess, following you a little bit into this project?
See, she's not like Aimee Gibb, she's like Amy Wood.
Right.
So like that's why it's so funny, because I actually think that obviously there's a lot of me in Aimee because that's as actors, like you want to express yourself through a character. So I think that the similarities are probably that Chelsea's like me and Aimee's also like me. Right. They're like different parts of me, because I just like shedding, and I like expressing parts of me through the characters that I'm given. But like, I think they've got a similar optimism. But yeah, I actually think at their core, they're quite different humans.
There have previously been calls for more diversity among the guests of the White Lotus, and in the season 3 premiere, there's a moment where Belinda sees a black couple staying at the hotel, and she seems very pleased to see that. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, can we expect to see more from those characters? And if so, how are they going to sort of impact and interact with Belinda's journey?
Great catch. That's a moment I talked to Mike about, how when I travel, seeing people who look like me in spaces that they haven't historically or ordinarily been, it's exhilarating. For example, I was traveling in Ireland, and I was at the top of this hill and this castle, and I was the only black person I saw for miles or for days at that point, and I saw a black family. And it was one of those things that lit me up, and I remember running over, and we gave each other, didn't know them from Adam, and just gave them a hug. And it's about feeling seen. And so in that moment, we see Belinda have that sort of visual exchange of feeling seen in sort of an environment where she doesn't see herself reflected. And I definitely see understand the audiences wanting more of that. I think the beauty of this season, Mike really does honor the culture and the environment that we're in, and we have an incredible Thai cast, and audiences will meet them and learn about their storylines in such beautiful, intricate ways. Literally, like Thai royalty, like the mega wattage of Thai stars in this season is incredible, and I think does a lot to speak to Mike's, listening to calls for diversity and representation. But yeah, I loved that moment. I love that moment to be able to nod to the fact that we all see it. We all see spaces like that don't have representation. Yeah.
And another thing I noticed about the first episode is a lot of kind of references to sort of hazards in the hotel and a few kind of lines that are a bit cheeky. One character says, if it kills me, in a very like conversational way. Obviously, we're looking for clues. I wonder if you can give us an indication of like the ratio of red herrings to genuine clues, because I feel like watching it, I was like, some of these are clearly here to throw us off the scent,
I can't give you that ratio, or I'd be giving you the recipe to the soup. But I think that's just the fun that Mike gets to have in this sort of like, he's in his 3rd season. The fan base is there, the accolades are there, the writing is there, the visuals are there. And now he can play with the audience in a way that I think that, he knows, what they're looking for and how to tease them. And I think that's the best television, when you feel like you're being fucked with a little bit. It's just like, you try to outsmart the writer. And when I'm watching things that aren't White Lotus, or even when I was watching season 2, I hadn't read anything. I didn't have access to it just because I'd been on the show. And I was trying to guess. I would text Mike and Dave Burnett, the producer, was like, I think I know what's going to happen. They're like, no, you don't. So yeah, there's going to be more red herrings, but to keep everyone on their toes, I'm excited.